What's going on, guys? Conviction 454 here, and this video is actually going to be a follow-up video from literally 4 days ago. So I talked about in that previous video about a cybersecurity analyst position that I interviewed for. So from my perspective, I absolutely bombed it. Like specifically during the interview, it was the IT security manager and then the SVP of the entire organization. They asked me a couple of questions. One was about reading a PowerShell script, and then the other one was about reading this CVE about some sort of buffer overflow. And at the time when I was actually looking at it, I didn't fully understand what I was actually looking at least not at a very full-on detailed level. So I understood maybe half of the PowerShell script, and then the other half I had never really seen those commandlets before. But then for the CVE, that was actually probably maybe my second or third time actually even looking at CVE in my lifetime. So I was reading it. I think I got the gist behind what the CVE was covering, but in terms of actually describing it or talking about it in a way that a cybersecurity analyst would do, I didn't do so well at that. So either way, fast forward 4 days ago, I thought about it over the weekend. I was pretty bummed out because I thought I had absolutely no shot at landing the role at all whatsoever. Turns out, as of about 4 hours ago, they reached back out to me with an offer. So obviously, at that very moment, I was stoked. I really couldn't believe what I was hearing because, from my point of view, I went to the interview, made a fool of myself, dwelled on it for days, literally after the interview on, I think that was Thursday. And then they called me saying, hey, we want to bring you along and we want to give you the job. And so it's really hard to put words to it because I went to school for cybersecurity, specifically IT, but the concentration was in cybersecurity. And I graduated from college 6 years ago. And so I made the decision to go to college 10 years ago because I would have been a senior in high school. So we're talking a decade ago. And man, the time has just went by. But I just remember being a freshman, stepping onto Middle Georgia State's campus for the first time ever and thinking, I almost felt like, what the hell am I doing here, So just thinking about the time where I knew absolutely nothing about tech, cyber, really anything, within that scope of technology to now, and then finally getting an opportunity to work in cybersecurity. It means so much more than because it's been, like I said, it's been years, and not even just being in school and taking a bunch of different courses and trying to keep my GPA up and making sure that I don't lose my financial aid and everything. Between all of that and then actually graduating, spending 5 years, almost 6 years working in IT, and also trying to get into cybersecurity specifically at the same time. It took its toll, man. I remember when I didn't have any facial hair at all. I remember just coming in and I didn't have any idea what PowerShell was, and I had no idea. I don't even think I really fully understood the difference between a laptop and a desktop back then. I didn't really understand anything about coding or networking or security, really anything technical. And then fast forward all these years later, here I am getting ready to start as a cybersecurity analyst for a company that I don't want to disclose because I don't want to in any way risk the possibility of going against the non-disclosure agreement. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But anyways, this position, it's going to be fully remote, so don't have to commute anywhere, and it seems like it's going to be mainly revolved around solving security alerts, specifically using Microsoft Sentinel and probably a Microsoft Defender for endpoint, Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. It sounds like it's going to be very heavily Microsoft based. They didn't really tell me a whole lot about what other sorts of tools and stuff that they use, but I do know that it's more on like I know that there's really no such thing as like entry level cyber, but it seems like the position is kind of branded that way, where they say 1 to 2 years of experience in security or IT in general, and then the job description just mentioned all this stuff about resolving alerts and participating in like audit reviews and really a lot of security related tasks. And so I'm absolutely looking forward to it, of course. There's just there's something that I really want to talk about, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. And honestly, whether it be security or IT or really even just going beyond the career. So like just think about your life in general and all the things that you may be going through right now that, maybe it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth, so to speak, or maybe it's just, difficult to bear with, or, it's taking its toll, like I always say. The one thing, or there's really a few things that has really kept me going throughout this process. And I'll say the number one thing that has really kept me going is just abiding by these core principles. So I think you should always be patient. You should always be consistent. You should always stay committed. Now, whether it comes to your career, really anything else that's going on in your life, like maybe you're like a mother or father with children, maybe you've got some other goals that you want to achieve, like maybe you want to lose 10 pounds, 50 pounds, something like that. Maybe you want to build muscle as well. Really, whatever goals that you have, if you are willing to spend several hours, like 50 hours, 100 hours, 1,000 hours, the number isn't really relevant in this particular case, but if you just stay consistent, stay persistent, and really just stay true to your cause and really just focus in, that you're already ahead of so many people out there. Because a lot of people in my position, they probably would have quit. And as a matter of fact, I'll just be honest with you, I almost quit. I almost said, you know what? Screw tech. I'm done with tech. I'm done with cybersecurity. I'm going to go and maybe go to trade school. I don't know. I almost thought about becoming a police officer. It was getting to the point where I was so stressed out all the time that I was like, is this even worth it anymore? And the next thing you know, as soon as I'm getting ready to quit, the opportunity that I was looking for was literally right there around the corner. And it's crazy how life plays out sometimes. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I don't botch this opportunity, because if I do, then, who knows what comes next. But I don't like to think like that right now. I just really want to be grateful for this opportunity, really grateful for the journey as well, because the journey taught me so much so far. And truth be told, it really feels like my career is just beginning. But anyways, I always try and make my videos as productive as possible. And for this particular video, I want to try and be as productive as possible. Also, I apologize if I sound a little bit choked up right now, because truth be told, I'm not usually an emotional guy at all, but today, it really it really triggered some hidden emotions that I've been holding in for a long time. Truth be told, I literally, like, once I got that phone call, I almost just bust into tears, because it's been a long journey. I really consider it a 10-year journey so far, between starting college and getting to this point where I finally achieved a massive career milestone. But anyways, when it comes to actually breaking into cyber, as I've talked about in previous videos and really in this video as well already, you gotta stay committed. A lot of you probably already have Security Plus, for example. That's not going to be enough. The one biggest piece of advice I can give you is to build a home lab. And I know you probably hear so many people on the internet at this point talk about home labs. Well, my advice is specifically deploy a SIEM, get some VMs, network the VMs together, deploy either Splunk or Sentinel. Sentinel it's free for 30 days, but you can still deploy it and do the free trial and everything. And Splunk has like their enterprise, like their free enterprise subscription that you can subscribe to, and then you can just play around with logs, create a data set, install sysmon on a Windows endpoint, send those logs over to Splunk, and then just figure out how you can index and search for specific telemetry data, such as user logins, or like when a process was created, or when a specific file was downloaded, things of that nature. Learn how to do that and then be able to talk about it during the interview. Another thing that I'll mention is really understand the incident response framework. So the incident response framework has 7 steps. I believe it's preparation, detection, analysis, containment, recovery. I think it's eradication, then, or containment, then eradication, then it's recovery, and then lessons learned. I believe those are the 7. So try to memorize that, and then also be able to explain each of those different phases or each of those different steps in the incident response framework, because chances are you will be asked about that during an interview. They may not ask you specifically like to recite all 7 steps, but just have that framework in mind whenever they eventually probably will ask you, like, what sort of incident have you worked on, and can you like walk me through each of the steps that you took to resolve it, and then explain how you would report the incident, and then if you needed to escalate an alert, for example, how would you convey that over to like the senior analyst. So that's another thing that I would keep in mind. And really, before you even get to this point, I think it's really, really useful to just already have a technical background. So if you've worked help desk, if you've worked systems administration, even if you worked in like a data center or as a NOC, pivoting over to cybersecurity will be so much easier if you do that first. But just trying to, let's say you start off as like a truck driver, not to pick on truck drivers, but if you're saying, hey, I want to work in cybersecurity, and then you just, like, without any technical background, you just apply to like a SOC analyst role in this market, oh man, if you land that, then please tell me about it, because it seems difficult enough for somebody even with experience. Like me personally, as I mentioned a few times already on this channel, I have to this point nearly 6 years of technical experience. I've worked help desk roles, I've worked a junior system admin role, I worked a data center role, I worked a mid-level systems administrator role for a little while, and now I'm finally getting this chance to actually be a cybersecurity analyst. So with that said, I just would not try to start here. I know a lot of you probably want to skip help desk. I wanted to skip it, but I didn't. And I worked it for probably longer than I had to. There's a lot of people that'll come in, work help desk for maybe a year, 2 years, and then move right into cybersecurity. I stayed in help desk for 4 out of these 6 years, and it was because I didn't take my career seriously. I waited too long to get certifications. I ended up getting terminated a few times actually because I was acting a fool. So, but it seems like that's all in the past now. But interestingly enough, like, I would say there's a lot of different skills that you can learn in cyber, but you don't need to know everything. I think a lot of people feel like they have to know every single thing about what it takes to be a SOC analyst, for example, or cyber analyst, but there's just too much. There's too much for you to know everything, and the people that are conducting these interviews, they know that. So don't come in with the expectation that you have to know every single thing. Like you have to know every single SIM, every single type of malware, every single type of EDR, IDS, or IPS platform out there, because you don't. And I'm proof of that at this point. So I've never worked cyber in my life, and as you can see, all I decided to do was build a lab and be able to talk about that lab. And as a matter of fact, I really want to help more people get into this industry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my GitHub in the description so that you guys can take a look at the projects that I've been working on. And when you do look at them, you're going to maybe feel slightly intimidated. Please don't, because a lot of these projects are just ideas that I either came across or, saw somewhere. And I was like, you know what, let me build this, maybe not necessarily in the most depth, but let me try and build it and then explain it and then show this, during an interview. so that the hiring manager could say, hey, at least he's actually trying to take initiative. And I really think that's what it's all about. But anyways, this video just reached the 15-minute mark. So the other thing that I wanted to bring right before I end the video is just be honest. Like, please do not lie. Please do not fabricate experience. And honestly, I feel a bit hypocritical because I've been the type of guy to do that before, where I've lied about my experience, specifically with roles, like when I was just getting into the field and I was trying to pivot from like help desk to systems administration, for example. I used to lie about what I knew a little bit. Please don't do that, especially when it comes to getting into cybersecurity, because they're going to figure it out pretty quickly. So what I say is just always be honest. And as a matter of fact, I think that might be the reason why I ended up landing this particular role, because I came in, I was completely honest with what I knew versus what I didn't know. The interviewer in particular flat out asked me, like, how skilled are you in KQL? Like, can you actually sit here and tell me right now how you would write a KQL rule from scratch? And I told him specifically what I said was KQL is something that I have exposure to, but it's not something that I've worked with for a very long time. And so in terms of reciting KQL from scratch, like right here, I would probably struggle with that. And that's why I said, and I believe there was another instance where he asked me if I had experience with something, and then I told him I do have exposure, I do have experience, but I told him I'm not an expert at it. I was honest. And I think maybe sometimes, like during the interview, I was wondering if I was a little bit too honest, but honestly, I know I've said honest a lot of times already, but either way, I've rambled on for long enough. Just be honest with yourself, and just remember patience, consistency, commitment. You follow those 3 principles right there, I really think you can accomplish just about anything you want in life. I'm really starting to believe that now more than ever. But anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one.